Welcome to today's deep dive. So, I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. Imagine you're sitting at your computer on a Tuesday night.
Oh, I already know where this is going.
Right. You've got like a dozen tabs open. You are 3 hours deep into comparing travel insurance policies for an upcoming trip.
A classic modern evening.
Exactly. And you're sitting there cross-referencing deductible limits against cancellation clauses. You're trying to figure out the legal difference between trip interruption and trip delay.
Which are definitely not the same thing in the fine print.
Exactly. And by the time you finally just give up and click purchase, you realize you've managed to save exactly $20 compared to the very first option you looked at.
Right.
But you feel so physically and mentally exhausted that you literally need to go lie down.
You're completely drained.
Yeah. Now, economists might traditionally look at that and call it a win for the free market, right? You shopped around, you got a lower price.
Right.
But today, our mission is to unpack this deeply frustrating modern paradox based on some really fascinating new research we've got in our sources today.
Because that $20 you saved, you didn't actually save it.
No, you just worked a highly frustrating, invisible part-time job for way less than minimum wage.
Which completely flips the baseline expectation of what a transaction is actually supposed to be.
Okay, walk me through that. What do you mean by the baseline expectation?
Well, the traditional model of buying something is a bounded interaction. You evaluate a price tag, you hand over a set amount of currency, you get a product or a service, and then you just move on with your life.
Right, it has a distinct beginning and end.
Exactly. But that clean boundary has virtually disappeared today. I mean, the monetary price listed on the screen has plummeted, right? Sometimes
Yes.
all the way down to zero for certain digital services.
Yeah, everything feels cheaper or practically free.
But the structural cost of simply existing as a consumer in that marketplace has quietly skyrocketed.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Because if you've ever felt entirely depleted just trying to, I don't know, pick a new electricity provider or figure out which AI subscription you're supposed to be using.
Oh, the AI subscriptions are a nightmare right now.
So bad. But this deep dive is going to validate that feeling for you.
Yeah.
We're going to show you exactly why the price tag doesn't tell the whole story of what you're actually paying.
We really need to start by looking at how the architecture of the offer itself has fundamentally changed.
Okay.
Let's take a really classic example. Mobile phone plans.
Oh, perfect example.
Historically, selecting a phone plan involved maybe two variables, right? Minutes and texts. Today, you're presented with this crazy multidimensional matrix.
Right, it's never just a base fee anymore.
No, you're balancing specific data limits and then throttling speeds after you hit those limits. You've got family combination discounts.
Device installment structures.
Yes. And trade-in valuations, penalty conditions for early exit. It just goes on.
And it isn't just a matter of doing some quick math in the moment, is it? It demands this weird, predictive cognitive labor.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, I have to forecast my own future behavior. I find myself trying to predict if I'll be streaming more video on a train commute like 4 months from now, just to figure out if I need the premium tier today.
And you do this for your phone, then you turn around and have to do it for all your overlapping streaming subscriptions.
Because the shows you watch are fractured across 4 different platforms now.
Exactly. Then you do it for your electricity provider, your cloud storage, your software subscriptions. It creates this state of continuous cognitive congestion.
Cognitive congestion, I like that term. It feels heavy. Why does it feel so heavy?
To understand that, the research provides a really crucial observational framework. It basically challenges us to stop focusing solely on the monetary price.
Okay, so look beyond the dollar amount.
Right. And instead, look at a concept called the total cost carried by the user.
Total cost carried by the user. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, there's a formula for it. The total cost is the monetary price plus what the researchers term the total decision burden.
Okay, wait. So I'm effectively paying for this so-called cheap service using my own total decision burden instead of cash.
Exactly. This total decision burden isn't just, a vague feeling of being annoyed. It's an actual measurable consumption of your resources.
Even if those resources aren't dollars and cents.
Right. The source material breaks this burden down into a very specific equation of tasks that maps exactly onto the sequence of a modern transaction.
Okay, break that equation down for me. What are we actually spending our energy on?
So the total decision burden equals the time you spend on search plus the effort of comparison plus the cognitive work required to understand complex conditions.
Which is the fine print we were talking about earlier.
Right. But it doesn't stop at checkout.
It never does.
No. You have to add the verification of claims, the ongoing monitoring of the service, and finally, the friction of switching or exit decisions.
Man, the verification part alone feels like it has doubled in the last 5 years.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't just find a product on Amazon and buy it anymore. You have to spend an hour verifying if the reviews are written by actual humans or generated by bots.
Or checking if the third-party seller is legitimate.
Exactly. But then, as you mentioned, there's the ongoing monitoring. You buy the service, but you don't get to just walk away and enjoy it.
No, you effectively take on a part-time role as an auditor for your own life.
That is so true. I have calendar alerts set just to track automatic renewal dates so I don't get rolled over into some crazy higher priced tier.
And that ongoing monitoring is where the biological toll really sets in for people. The research refers to this as the consumption of our recovery margins.
Recovery margins, like our downtime.
Yes. Your recovery margin is your cognitive and metabolic reserve. It's the mental downtime you actually need to rest, reset, and process information efficiently.
So when I'm constantly stressing about an auto-renew date,
Right, when you are continuously forced to hold contract conditions in your active memory or monitor a data threshold so you don't trigger a penalty, your system is denied that resting state.
the sources use a really fascinating physiological term for this, chronic depolarization.
Yes, chronic depolarization. In neurology, a healthy nerve fiber depolarizes to send a signal, right?
Okay.
And then it must repolarize. It has to rest before it can fire again.
Makes sense. It needs to reset.
But when a biological system or a psychological one is bombarded with a continuous stream of unresolved, low-level micro-decisions, like managing 12 subscriptions, it enters a state of chronic depolarization.
It just keeps firing.
It just keeps firing. You become hypersensitive to small stimuli. Your judgment window shortens dramatically.
So you aren't just inconvenienced by the pricing matrix.
Yeah.
Your actual biological capacity to process information and recover from daily stress is being structurally worn down.
Exactly. You are literally metabolizing these cheap prices.
Wow. We are paying the difference between the old expensive price and the new cheap price with our body's own nervous system.
That's a perfect way to summarize it.
But, that raises a historical question for me. If we are doing all this invisible labor right now, who was doing it 20 or 30 years ago? Because booking a flight in 1995 didn't feel like navigating a legal minefield.
Well, in the past, those costs were held internally by the organization.
Okay, meaning what?
Meaning you paid a higher monetary price, and in exchange, the organization employed human service staff, travel agents, dedicated customer representatives, account managers.
Actual people.
Right. Those people were paid a salary to categorize you, select the appropriate plan for your specific context, check your eligibility, and map out all the rules and exceptions on your behalf.
They were the ones deciphering the fine print, so I didn't have to.
Exactly. But under the banner of, empowerment and self-service, that entire sorting mechanism was pushed onto our side of the screen.
It's basically like self-checkout at the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
but applied to our actual brains and decision-making.
That is the core structural shift here. To lower monetary prices and offer massive scale, organizations standardized their interfaces. They essentially externalized all that clerical labor.
So today, through an app or a web portal, I categorize myself.
You categorize yourself. You check your own eligibility against the database. You are completely responsible for interpreting the exceptions and managing the cancellations.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Mm.
Isn't that just a trade-off we actively ask for as consumers?
How do you mean?
I mean, we wanted the absolute cheapest possible flights. We wanted hyper-customizable digital services instead of paying for those massive, bloated cable packages from the 2000s. It feels a bit like we're blaming corporations for giving us exactly the efficiency and low prices we demanded.
And that's a very fair point. It is entirely true that standardization genuinely lowers prices and increases flexibility. And the source material is careful not to frame this as some simplistic story of corporate malice or intentional wrongdoing.
It's not just evil CEOs laughing in a boardroom.
No, not at all. It is an observation of a structural redistribution of work. The organization achieves peak efficiency, sure, but they achieve it by turning millions of everyday consumers into an unpaid, decentralized workforce.
We all got second jobs as data entry clerks.
Basically, yeah. The issue isn't any single company. The issue is that the scale of this redistribution happening across every single sector of life simultaneously, it creates a cumulative cognitive congestion that the original trade-off just didn't account for.
That makes total sense. And that cumulative congestion, it directly challenges one of our biggest cultural myths, I think.
Which one?
Well, we generally equate having more options with having more freedom. The logic goes that if a streaming platform gives me 50 different microplans, I have the ultimate freedom to build my perfect entertainment package.
Right, the infinite buffet of choices.
Exactly. But obviously, that breaks down in practice. We get overwhelmed. But why does that happen? Because humans are incredibly adaptable. We learned to navigate the entire internet in a decade. Why is a complex pricing matrix suddenly our breaking point?
The breaking point is caused by what researchers call a speed mismatch.
Speed mismatch. Go walk me through the mechanics of that.
Yeah, so there is a fundamental structural difference between being able to choose and being able to keep choosing indefinitely.
Okay.
The speed mismatch refers to the velocity of the market versus the velocity of human biology.
Market versus biology.
Right. Corporations utilizing algorithmic software can update their product lines, change their terms of service, launch promotional campaigns, and alter their pricing structures thousands of times a day.
Because it's all automated.
Exactly. They have the computational power to infinitely expand the options and the variables. However, the human capacity to understand, compare, and adapt to those changes does not scale infinitely.
Because my processing power is tied up in the friction of actual life. I mean, I still have to sleep, I have to make dinner, go to work, pick the kids up from school.
Precisely. The speed of the market's algorithmic updates vastly outpaces the speed of human cognitive adaptation.
So the options keep multiplying exponentially.
But your capacity to process them either remains completely static or it actively declines because of your other daily demands.
Which honestly perfectly explains a behavior that traditional budgeting advice usually writes off as just lazy or irrational.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you look at how people actually behave in the real world, they don't always pick the absolute mathematically optimal deal.
No, they rarely do.
Like, I know people who stay with a cell phone contract that they are fully aware is $20 more expensive than a competitor. Or they get halfway through a comparison website for car insurance, get completely overwhelmed by all the variables, and just stick with their current overpriced provider.
And traditional economics would label that a failure of the rational consumer. They're leaving money on the table. But the framework we're discussing today argues the exact opposite. When a person abandons a complex decision or stays with a familiar, slightly more expensive brand, it is rarely due to laziness.
It's actually a highly rational biological and psychological adaptation.
Yes, they are managing their total cost.
I want to introduce a mechanical analogy here because this really helped it click for me. I like to think of this behavior like the shock absorbers on a car.
Okay, I like where this is going.
If you drive over a deeply potholed road with a rigid, completely stiff suspension, the whole axle might snap, right?
Yeah, I can't handle the impact.
So by choosing to pay an extra $15 or $20 a month for a simpler, familiar service, you are essentially buying a shock absorber. You are taking a voluntary financial hit to smooth out the cognitive bumps and prevent a total mental breakdown.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. In the structural models, this is referred to as maintaining fluid stability.
Fluid stability.
Yes. If a human system is pushed to constantly synchronize with every new, volatile piece of information on the market, it loses its adaptability.
It gets rigid and snaps.
Exactly. By choosing not to engage, by intentionally postponing a decision or sticking with a known entity, you are preserving your limited mental bandwidth.
You're protecting yourself.
Right. You are recognizing that your attention and your recovery time have a tangible high value, and you are choosing not to spend them navigating a corporate matrix.
So does this mean choosing a slightly more extensive but simpler service is actually a completely rational move to protect my peace of mind?
According to this research, yes, absolutely.
Okay, but, and this is a big but, if spending extra money to buy back your peace of mind is a valid, necessary strategy, that inherently means his whole system is drastically unequal.
It is profoundly unequal.
Because not everyone has an extra $20 a month to act as a shock absorber.
Right. If the monetary price is low, but the total decision burden is high, then access to that cheap price becomes highly dependent on unevenly distributed conditions.
So affordability basically transforms into something else entirely.
Yes, it is no longer just a property of the product itself. It's no longer just a number on a tag. Affordability becomes a passage condition.
A passage condition, meaning a gate you have to unlock before you're even allowed to access the cheap price.
Exactly. And the keys to that gate are entirely non-financial resources.
Like what? What do I need to get through the gate?
Well, To actually secure the lowest possible price, you need available time. You need the ability to spend 3 hours on a Tuesday researching.
Which a lot of people just don't have.
Right. You also need advanced search skills to navigate intentionally confusing interfaces, and you need institutional literacy to understand the legal jargon and the operational logic of the contract.
Oh, institutional literacy is a massive barrier. I mean, it's knowing the difference between an introductory APR and a variable APR on a credit card,
Yes.
or understanding how a health insurance deductible interacts with an out-of-pocket maximum. If you don't speak that language, you're locked out.
And beyond literacy, you need a high tolerance for mistakes.
Right. What happens if I get it wrong?
Exactly. If you select the wrong plan, do you have the ability to absorb that error? Can you pay the penalty fee to back out? Or weather a sudden spike in your monthly bill?
So if you are living paycheck to paycheck, working multiple jobs, or maybe managing a chronic illness, your cognitive and financial resources are already fully deployed, just surviving.
You do not have the buffer required to risk a poor decision.
The risk of engaging with the complex, so-called cheap option is simply too catastrophic.
So if you don't have the buffer, you might avoid the cheaper market entirely and just stick with what you know, even if it costs more.
Wow. So having the exact same options presented to everyone on a public web page fundamentally does not mean everyone has the same freedom to use them.
No, the cheapness is heavily gated behind your ability to perform the cognitive labor that the corporation offloaded onto you.
Which naturally brings us to the inevitable technological solution that the market is currently pitching to save us all.
Yes, AI.
Right. Because if human biological bandwidth is the bottleneck, the tech industry's immediate answer is always to outsource the brain work.
Just throw artificial intelligence at the problem.
Exactly. And the pitch is incredibly seductive, I have to admit. You just hand the AI all the massive, confusing pricing matrices, tell it what your budget is, and let the algorithm do the math and pick the best plan.
It sounds perfect in theory.
But does handing this over to an AI actually solve the cognitive drain? Or does it just change its flavor?
Well, it's nuanced. AI is incredibly effective at specific phases of the decision burden.
Like the search phase.
Exactly. It drastically lowers the time and effort required in the initial search and comparison phases. It has the computational power to instantly organize massive, complex variables.
It can present multiple comparison axes and narrow a field of hundreds of candidates down to 2 or 3 viable options in seconds.
Right. It can read the 40-page terms of service agreement in 2 seconds and highlight the penalty clauses for you.
So comparison sites and AI tools might chop all the vegetables for us in the kitchen.
Yes, but, and this is a big bet, but it does not eliminate the total decision burden.
What does it do then?
What it actually does is shift the bottleneck. The friction moves away from the search phase and heavily concentrates in the verification and translation phases.
Translation, meaning taking this perfectly clean, mathematically optimal algorithmic output and forcing it to fit into my actual messy human reality.
Exactly. The AI might find the objectively cheapest mobile plan based on the numbers.
But it doesn't know that my specific house happens to be in a total dead zone for that carrier's network.
Right. Or it doesn't know the nuanced social dynamics of your family plan. The AI provides a generalized output based on scraped data, but you, the human, still have to verify if that answer is actually correct.
I have to ensure the AI didn't just hallucinate a favorable cancellation clause that simply doesn't exist in the real contract.
Because the ultimate risk remains entirely on our shoulders.
Yeah, if the AI tells me to switch to a specific variable rate power grid plan and then a winter storm hits and my bill triples.
AI doesn't pay the bill.
No. I paid the bill. We still have to cook the meal, eat it, and suffer the indigestion if the ingredients were bad.
Furthermore, integrating AI introduces a whole new recursive problem.
Oh no, what that?
To get help with your decision fatigue, you now have the added burden of deciding which AI model you were supposed to use.
Oh, it's so true. We just built a brand new maze to try and escape the old one.
Am I supposed to use the paid subscription model, the free open source one, the one integrated into my browser, or the one on my phone?
We've created a new matrix of choices just to manage our choices.
Which perfectly illustrates the core thesis of the research. Adding a new technological layer doesn't eliminate the structural requirement for human classification, judgment, and risk assumption.
It just relocates the cognitive labor to a slightly different part of the process.
You are still paying for the interaction with your attention and your recovery margins.
So this framework completely changes how we need to evaluate the things we buy. I mean, we started this deep dive by asking why we feel so perpetually exhausted by a marketplace that seems to be practically giving things away.
And the answer is that the price tag is an illusion.
We are actively paying the difference between the listed price and the true cost by deploying our total decision burden. We are doing the clerical labor that companies used to pay employees to do, and we are literally draining our own nervous systems in the process.
Which means we really need a completely new definition of what makes a product or service a good deal.
So genuine affordability isn't just about a low monetary number at checkout anymore.
No. True affordability must fundamentally include the ability not to decide constantly.
It requires low friction, the ability to easily undo a mistake without massive financial or temporal penalties.
Yes.
It means preserving those cognitive cooling spaces in your life where you don't have to be on high alert, dodging an automatic renewal or tracking some arbitrary usage threshold.
A product is only truly cheap if it allows you to maintain your cognitive cooling space.
Which leaves us with a critical structural question to consider as we wrap up today.
And it's a big one.
What's the final provocative thought we should leave the listener with?
Well, if our modern economy is continuously forcing us to spend so much of our daily cognitive capacity, our limited bandwidth, and our vital recovery margins navigating trivial micro-decisions just to save a few dollars on digital subscriptions,
Yeah.
what major, truly important life decisions are we suddenly too exhausted to make?